Hello, everybody. I know, I can't believe
Smooth
it.
as ever.
Welcome to the Punch Up Pod with Lila and Pat. Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day. Pat, my friend, how are you doing this week?
I am awesome. I magically dodged COVID again.
Look at you.
Hero.
You're like Teflon Don.
Might have something to do with the fact that I mask and stay away from indoor settings and all that
Masks
jazz.
don't work. What are you talking about?
I was at a wedding and turns out the bride who hugged literally everyone at the wedding had COVID.
Wow. And have you heard the fallout? Have a lot of people gotten it since then?
Not yet. I mean, I don't even know that she notified everybody. We just happened to find out.
That's perfect.
Happened to find out.
That sounds about right. Oh,
so yeah.
Geez.
But anyway,
well, I'm glad you avoided
happy and
it.
healthy. How are you?
Yeah, that's good. I am too. As like you, I mask all the time. So I have a crazy reaction to my mask, but I have also avoided the COVID. And I wonder if it's the masking or because I drink so much.
It could be the alcohol. That could be the secret ingredient.
It might be. I'm self-medicating all the time.
And those other herbs that you partake in, which I don't.
Yeah, just a little bit, not enough. I should probably move over to that also. I think the alcohol is better at killing all the stuff that's going on inside me. If you snort the alcohol.
I mean, if RFK Jr. wants my vote, he has to at least say alcohol is better than the vaccine or something like that.
I know we're going to get into a little bit of the RFK stuff, but boy, I found him way more impressive before I heard him interviewed. I was willing to kind of like let a little bit slide. I was like, well, I wasn't going to vote for him anyway, but I was like, on balance, I really understand, why someone might choose him over Biden. I still do, but like, holy cow, we are just in a world of trouble. But I know we're going to get into that. So I think we should start. We are super excited to have two filmmakers behind the upcoming healthcare documentary called Healing Us, which premieres in Washington State in 2 days on the 19th. We have got Kenny Ballentine. Oh gosh, I didn't even ask you if it's Ballentine or Ballentine, and Maddy Purves. Okay, hi, welcome to the show. I just scroll up that high. There we go. Pat and I always are pushing buttons at the same time. Welcome to the show, you guys. We've been wanting to have you on for such a long time. We're so excited about your film. How are you both doing?
Good. Excited to be here. You guys have such a fun show. Here I was on purpose remaining sober because I was going to be on a show, and now I realized I've prepared inappropriately.
Do you need to take a second to go remedy that situation?
I'll have a shot for you.
Thanks. On my behalf. Cool. But yeah, thanks for having us here.
So you are the director of the movie, and Maddy, you are the editor. Is that correct?
I'm the editor. That's right.
And it premieres on Friday night.
Yeah.
Are you all headed out there, or are you in Washington? Tell us about what your situation is. And then we want to hear about the movie, obviously.
Yeah, we're based in the Sacramento area, and we'll be trekking up to Washington tomorrow evening.
Okay.
The premiere is in Tacoma, where the movie really had its original beginning. Working with the Red Berets for Medicare for All up
Friends
there.
of the show. We love those guys.
So we're real. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to say that reminds me to say a thank you to both of you who gave me a ride back from San Francisco and proved that these two are good people. I didn't know them at all. First time we met, and we were there protesting for all the deaths. The Day of the Dead, it wasn't a parade, but Day of the Dead event at Nancy Pelosi's one of 4 mega mansions. But it was
you earned that by denying us all health care.
A pleasure meeting both of you, and I appreciate the ride. So you're good people forever in my heart.
All right. Thanks.
So tell us, so what was your entree into making this? How did you guys first decide to make this documentary, and whom did you have come on board? Like, how did you sort of cobble it all together?
So I'll start off, and then I'll let Maddy because Maddy joined in about halfway through production.
Okay.
But it really began because I was doing other film work, and the topic I was actually doing a lot of work on was police violence. And I was trying to tell a lot of stories out of Oakland and the Bay Area. And it just kept striking me how often the topic of healthcare kept coming up in these interviews about how to have a world without policing, right? What are the holes in the fabric of our society? Healthcare became a topic in every interview I was having about police violence, right? So like, there's something here. I want to tell a story related to healthcare. I didn't know what it would be until I heard an interview with Laura Fielding on another podcast. And I learned about these women up in Washington State crocheting and knitting red hats as a symbol of solidarity for the movement. And I thought, hey, that's cute. I'll go make a little short film about them. And it just snowballed. Laura doesn't allow you to do anything small. So she very quickly got, Scott Desnoyers involved and introduced me to Dr. Joe Jarvis. And it just turned into something with a much bigger scope than I could have imagined at the beginning.
Well, that's fantastic. And then Maddy, you came aboard to edit all of these heartbreaking footage. I mean, it's such a beautiful movie. Pat and I got to see an early screening of it. How did you come aboard?
Well, gosh, how to start this part of the story? There's so many ways it could start, right, Kenny? Which point of trauma? Kenny and I have a lot of no. We have a lot of similarities. Both of us come from a high religious demand group, so we have a lot of similar religious trauma. And we met through my dad. Similar. Reached out on Facebook in like a community group in Sacramento. Hey, my daughter's looking for work. Is anybody in film? We met. Both of us have since talked. We're both very hesitant to trust each other, but we met, immediately hit it off. Kenny was talking about this police film. I was very eager to get back into a film and kind of going through the footage together. Kenny had already kind of said things like, I really have been working on this cops thing for a while, but honestly, this healthcare thing is just fascinating. A little interesting there too. My dad, who set us up, sells insurance. He is a broker. So that's kind of part of all of the interesting part of the story is when we were talking about this very early on, I remember thinking, how's this going to work? Am I going to be the antithesis to Kenny's, liberal? Am I going to kind of balance it? But not at all. We went into the footage. Kenny had gone through Laura's stream of connections, Joe, eventually getting to Brianna, eventually getting Wendell, and getting all of these interviews that had already been shot. And most of the content of the film had already been shot when I came into the picture. And it was kind of a lot of our similarities in terms of what we were both processing, Kenny and I, in the making of the film and going through those interviews, which are so emotional. There's so much too that's not included in the film. This turned into a process piece in some ways. So that's kind of how at some point we were fully converted into the healthcare thing. Right. And at some point we were fully converted into all the little bits and pieces that make it kind of the tapestry of film that it is, including the part with the puppets, the paper puppets, and going to after we had shot a lot of the interviews, going to the San Francisco Day of the Dead. A lot of it came from us kind of having a similar wanting to do something and feel like we were taking control back of our lives and our country. And that kind of helped us with the scope of this film, turn it into an American film. It's kind of like, let's reclaim America and let's use it.
Yeah. Let's
start with healthcare.
And if I remember correctly, in San Francisco, you guys were just looking for a narrator at that point. You hadn't had Sarandon on board, or you were just in contact with her about it. Something. Yeah,
like I could probably make another documentary about the process of getting Susan Sarandon in the movie. We had some good. We had some early introductions to her people, but it's just working with celebrities is not easy. I'll just put it that way. And it's a long, difficult process. And so we had kind of given up a few times and reached out to a whole bunch of other potential narrators, and some got close to happening and some didn't. And then literally, I mean, the movie was far done, and we were about ready to call it quits and just put it out as is when we finally got the green light from the Sarandon team. Yeah.
Yeah. First of all, I just want to go back for a second that this started about policing, because it's so fascinating how every time, we do this thing, I don't know if you've seen, but we have a wheel of topics of the week, and
Saw that.
every topic is completely interconnected, whether it's climate justice or money in politics or policing. And so that's really interesting. I didn't realize that it had started that way. And it is such a sign of where priorities are, that we always have money for war and police. And yet, tens of thousands of people die every year because we don't have healthcare.
Yeah. And you really can't tell the healthcare story in America without also telling a poverty story and without telling a queer story. I mean, it's interwoven into every piece of American life.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Should we show the trailer, or just kind of give people a vibe for it? Pat, are you going to do? I don't want to push the button. At the same time
I'm pushing that magic button.
Okay, good for you.
So here is the trailer to Healing Us.
We are governed in American healthcare by the for-profit interests.
In a typical year in modern America, approximately 68,000 people will die due to lack of adequate health care.
Health insurance companies are in the business to make money, and they will do whatever they can to avoid paying claims. The fallout is they would rather make a sale than take care of a patient.
If me and Danny lived in Canada, if me and Danny lived in Mexico, me and Danny would still be living in Canada or Mexico. They're not just numbers, they're people. They're ripped from us because of our greedy healthcare system that puts profits before people.
This is a profit-driven business. They can be sued if they are not acting in the best interest of their shareholders, not in the best interest of the patients.
So the problem is greed.
The Democrats and the Republicans are both in the pockets of Big Pharma and the insurance lobby.
We're at a real tipping point.
The people in this country know the system is broken.
It's time for change.
Oh, I get chills. It's such a great film. And I know we all know that today they reintroduced Medicare for All just when we don't have both chambers of Congress. It's amazing how that timing worked out. But all of these hearings are so frustrating because, and I'm just going to show this graphic, but everyone's on board for Medicare for All except for the 538 members of Congress. I mean, we know, sorry, none of us can be seen anymore. Sorry. But the general public, 70% want healthcare for all. Democrats, 85%. So it is so clear that we have no representation in Congress, and the people who sign on to say that they are sponsors, co-sponsors, like what Chantel Brown, they pay like a little bit of money to be part of the CPC or whatever it is. And then they get to say, yeah, I'm also a co-sponsor, but they will never bring it up just the way in California when it could actually pass. So it's like banging our heads against a wall.
Yeah, no, it's without a question would be the most popular piece of legislation maybe in American history. I mean, there's nothing that compares.
Yeah.
And that's one thing we really wanted to do with the film, was illustrate that fact, was try to get away from the divisive narrative and make a film where we have poor America, we have a upper class white older man from Utah, right? We have a NFL football player, we have poverty represented, we have trans people represented. Everyone wants this, and it's hurting everybody like equally. There's no divide. We're not on warring factions, and that's the story I haven't seen really told yet.
I mean, it really is the 1% versus the rest of us. And even I think the tide is turning with some, and now of course I'm not going to be able to find the exact thing, but this Yale study that came out that said not only would it save 70,000 people every year, but it would save $450 billion a year. So it would actually, even for the bottom line people. And so then it just comes back to, it really is just a tactic to discipline labor. It feels like there's no other reason not to enact the system that what the other 32 of the 33 industrialized countries in the world have some form of universal health care. We're the only ones.
I like that you put it that way, disciplining labor. That's something that's been on my mind a lot with all the protesting that we've seen in France recently, because we just literally can't hit the streets that way, right? We all have this leash around our necks. Are you really going to risk getting losing your kid's medication?
Right.
It's extortion.
It is.
That's why the one thing they're fighting tooth and nail on is detaching healthcare from employment. They got us there. Like you said, you're going to risk your kids' healthcare. No, you're going to stay in your crappy job.
Right.
Yeah.
Or marriage.
Or marriage.
Yeah. No, that's
That's for real. Yeah.
Not you, Josh. No, I'm kidding. Well, you are fantastic. I'm so excited for everybody to see this film. Do you know how many people are going to be there tomorrow I keep saying tomorrow, on Friday? Are what's the
I don't know how many people are going to show up, but we still have some tickets available if anyone's in Tacoma and wants to join us. HealingUsNetwork.com. You can grab some tickets. We're also going to do a free screening in Seattle the following day. And details about that are also on the website. And then we hope to have the film available for purchase digitally and otherwise very shortly after the premiere.
Well, that is fantastic. You will have to let us know how it goes, and I'll make sure that we put the link to your website in the description. It's not there right now, but sorry, healingusnetwork.com. .com. Okay. Fantastic. Pat, do you have any other questions before we let these lovely people go take care of, I'm sure, a million things before you head off to your premiere?
I just want to say thank you for all you're doing. This is a critical step. Raising awareness is really the only power we have now. First, we have to raise awareness, then we can rally the troops. So for the people that aren't aware of the alternatives, this makes the case to anybody that we should have Medicare for all. I don't know how you could watch this movie and walk away from it thinking, oh, at least we're not Canada, or at least we're not all these other countries doing better than us. So thank you for what you've done. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us on. I'll just end with a quick Easter egg for fans of Punch Up Pod. And that is, if you watch the movie and keep your eyes peeled, I think there's at least 2.5 seconds of Pat on the screen.
Wow. Sounds like my dating life.
It always comes back to high school.
We're transitioning to the alcohol part here.
All right.
Kenny, Maddie, thank you both so much. You are awesome. Best of luck, and thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right.
Cheers, guys.
Bye.
Cheers. Take care. Oh, Pat just got rid of me. We switched sides. It's all moving around. We clearly pre-gamed too hard.
We co-produce. Which
that's right. We wear all the hats here. Well, they're amazing, and it is so difficult to make a small film and to wear all the hats that I know they did, and then to have to put it all together for the screening and all that. So it's amazing that they were able to come and share a bit with us. And I'm really excited for this film. I hope everybody sees it. And I hope it just shames all of the disgusting people in Congress.
Absolutely. And just a reminder that we both saw the movie. It's phenomenal. Obviously, we're not paid to do any of this stuff, but like I said, you can't watch this movie and not come away with the right thoughts about needing to change our healthcare system. And
100%.
Please spread it around. I'm sure somebody was asking about viewing is because of COVID and whatnot. So it'll be available digitally. So, show it to your family, show it to your friends,
Yeah.
spread it around.
It's really beautiful and incredibly heartbreaking. Like this whole country.
All right. I'm a shot ahead of you already, by the way.
Are you really? Wow.
I did take a shot to cheers those guys on. So
I was drinking my Mai Tai. That's the drink this week is our Mai Tai.
That's right. And a Mai Tai can be made 10,000 different ways. Just add some fruit and some juice and
lots of rum.
Like Lila's and I's are completely different.
Totally different. But they'll still get us to the same place. So there we are. Yes. Gloom, despair, and shots. And Laura, it's always gloves off time. National Nurses United tweeted they're all excited to watch. That's fantastic. Yeah, they've been a real show of solidarity. It's fantastic. Hi, Dave, and Reflect the Sun. I'm always crying on the inside. All right, let's get to our wheel. Let's hash it out, right?
I think so.
All right.
Right.
What
I
do
just
we
have
have?
I have to address something really important here. Kudos to the Lakers for beating the Warriors.
Where's your Lakers jersey?
It's a good thing we didn't place a bet. So.
I know. Wait till you see what happens when Trump is the nominee. Then you're really going to have to. I'm going to deck you out.
Bet in.
We still don't know what the punishment is for when I'm right.
We'll have it settled. All right, what's on the wheel? What do we got?
All right. We got 2024. Everyone loses. Police the poor. Raise the roof. And C-19 emergency. And lots of shots.
And we took the timeline cleanses off the wheel. I don't know if anyone noticed that, but we're just going to do them between segments so we can sort of cleanse our palate from whatever.
Help us segue to the next depressing topic.
Get us out of our rant. Transitional something.
Yeah, baby.
Okay. Oh, what? That's the first time in like 6 weeks that we haven't landed on shot first.
Bizarre.
I think the wheel hates us. I know. Did we just land on raise the roof?
Raise the roof.
The debt ceiling crisis, baby. It is a crisis that never needed to happen. And yet here we are again. I know a lot of liberals hate to acknowledge the fact that we did have the presidency and both chambers of Congress for 2 full years. Biden could have abolished the debt limit. They asked him to do it. And he said that getting rid of the statutory debt ceiling would be irresponsible. So what's way better right now is that we are going to negotiate all those entitlements that Biden has been threatening to chip away at for his 40-year career. So we're just exactly where we all knew we would be.
Isn't it a little suspicious that the Democrats always say they're not going to negotiate and then they give away the farm? Like they're the worst negotiators known to man, because at the end of the day, they really want these cuts too. Their donors want these cuts.
That's right.
It's all about keeping the class structure in place and enriching the rich and impoverishing the poor.
Right. Like we still haven't gotten rid of Trump's tax cuts. He's not the president anymore. I mean, it's amazing. I still see people blaming him for things when we've had a president. Like, I sort of joke about it, but apparently the least powerful position as a Democrat as the president of the United States just cannot do a single thing.
Well, I mean, possibly, but a second-term president can do everything. If you just elect him a second time, he'll be able to get everything done that he didn't do the first time when he promised to do them.
Right. With both chambers of the House. And probably we're not going to even hang on to the Senate, I'm assuming, but I don't even know. All right. So do you want to talk about what we're cutting, or where do you want to go with this?
Yeah, we can go a million ways. So there's the Trump tax cuts.
$50 billion tax loophole that we could have at least gotten rid of that, right? But instead we're going to cut spending always. Not the giveaway. 12 years of being the most responsible guy in the room. The seeds for what is now a negotiation over how much of the budget to cut were sown during Obama's grand bargain phase. And, here's also where, boy, I'm having a hard time with my Bernie, as I'm like really sort of done. I can't even wear his t-shirts anymore. When Obama threatened to do that, Bernie said he was going to primary him. And Obama, at least in his language, was way closer to what Bernie hoped for, or said he hoped for, than anything Biden is. And the fact that Bernie has right away just lined up to endorse this disaster of a man is so heartbreaking.
I mean, don't get me started on Bernie. I love Bernie for his Medicare for all activism and the healthcare piece to him, and what he's done to raise awareness about all the income inequality needs we have. Yeah. But when it comes to COVID, he's been silent, and he's the literal goddamn chair of the Senate Health Committee, and he let the emergency declaration lapse. Nothing. What's he saying about these tax cuts? Is he saying, well, first we should at least repeal Trump's tax cuts, and that's some money?
Nope.
Where is he on the debt ceiling?
Nothing. And here's what could happen, right? Oh, this is so small, but okay. 200,000 children could be kicked off of Head Start. 640,000 families would lose rental assistance. 430,000 families face eviction. This is what's on the possible chopping block. Of course, there are going to be work requirements, which many of them I think were put in place under what's his name, Biden. The work requirements on cash assistance that the president voted for in the 1990s are still the law today. He says that he will not touch Medicaid, although, who knows what will happen there. But he will evaluate whatever proposals Republicans bring to the table based on the principles of not accepting policies that push Americans into poverty, which is an enormous joke because he's helped construct many of those policies that have kept people completely beholden to their debt.
Right. And the reality is that they have ways to cut Medicaid without cutting Medicaid, by cutting the people that can qualify for Medicaid, like by instituting these work assistance, work requirements programs.
Right.
It affects everybody. So they've already added them to SNAP benefits. There's a lot of stuff where there are now work requirements where there weren't. And the whole system is ridiculous. Like you can't get help raising your own kid, but you can get paid to help raise someone else's kid. And it's just a lot of ridiculous stuff going on there.
It's a lot of bureaucracy and red tape that is designed to make these policies fail, and designed to have them fail for the people who need them the most. Most
punish
people,
the poor.
To punish
all
the
these
poor.
cuts are going to come from the poor people, poor and middle class. Anyone struggling is going to be affected by them and the failure to raise the debt ceiling or eliminate the need to.
Right. Which is, again, it's a completely manufactured crisis that only comes up so that Republicans and Democrats can keep chipping away at policies and keep that will benefit their donors, their Wall Street donors. I mean, that's the whole deal. And just in case McCarthy doesn't get enough votes, we have a bunch of centrist Dems who are going to help save McCarthy in case he doesn't have enough Republican votes. They are willing to help him save his gavel. That's that's the vote blue no matter who crowd coming through for Speaker McCarthy.
I mean, the lines are so blurred now between both parties. I mean, if you take abortion off the table, which most Republicans don't want abortion on the table to the level that they know they've stepped in it, essentially. Like, it's going to cost them. It's the only thing keeping people voting Democrat is that one issue. Had they not repealed Roe versus Wade, it would be such a landslide for any Republican, Trump included.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and it might still be, because you cannot keep saying that you're the party that believes in a woman's right to choose and then do nothing to Democratic administrations in a row to codify Roe and take this, hold us hostage for our bodily autonomy. I mean, it is just really horrific. And I think more and more people seem to be seeing through it, but they still, there's always that threat of how grotesque Trump and DeSantis and Mike Pence are.
Right.
I
So
mean,
if you're a centrist Dem who is corporate owned, you want the Republican Party to go as extreme radical right as possible, so you can slide right yourself, and your donors will be happy because you'll still be the sane alternative, even though you're basically a Reagan Republican from the 80s.
Yep. I mean, even
We
Obama said he was a Reagan Republican. Like, that was Obama. That was what, 15 years ago, talking about himself as a Reagan Republican.
I mean, by today's standards, Reagan would be a progressive almost. I mean, he'd be in the progressive caucus.
Yeah, they'd let him in with Chantel Brown. Well, luckily, we've got AOC writing a sternly worded letter that there'll be a huge backlash if Biden concedes too much. I mean, look at that. It's not even if he concedes. Yeah. First of all, there'll be no backlash.
Not from her. They won't.
Yeah, nothing. They can't even say, like, we are not budging an inch. We have 600,000 people on the streets. We have tens of thousands of people, millions of people without healthcare, tens of thousands of people dying because they don't have healthcare. We don't have a living wage. We're not doing this. They can't say any of it. They're just saying basically that sternly worded letter, there'll be a backlash. What's her backlash? What has she ever, where has she ever used her power to get any concessions ever? What's the backlash?
There is none. And the other quote on there was from Bowman, which was like, it makes us look like we don't know what we're doing. It makes us look weak and like we don't know what we're doing. Well, yeah, it makes you look weak and like you know what you're doing because you're co-signing this stuff at the end of the day every single time.
Every time. There's a really small clip of Ro Khanna. I just want to show, because he's so close and yet he gets it 180 degrees wrong.
What if Nancy Pelosi had done that? What if we had said, unless you give us Medicare for all, unless you give us Green New Deal, President Trump, we're not going to raise the debt ceiling. Of course we don't do that because we're responsible, because we believe in compromise when it comes to the functioning of the government. They're acting irresponsible.
And a lot of your base probably would like it if y'all had done that. I mean,
imagine thinking it's irresponsible to let our planet burn and to let millions of people die. Like, it's so responsible. Thank you for compromising with the fascists across the aisle. How is that being the adult in the room?
Traditionally, Democrats caved to everything the Republicans put forward, and the Republicans put more vile legislation before them, and they cave and compromise.
Oh my God.
And none of this tradition and decorum and none of it ever gets reciprocated. It's just a fallacy that like both parties compromise. Republicans don't compromise on any Democratic initiatives ever. Not a single one in the fucking history of mankind have they compromised on.
Yeah.
We should show that clip on the economy. I like that guy. I mean, that kind of
all right, good.
Sums up a lot of the economy stuff.
And also,
why do we have so much poverty in America? I just heard one of the best responses to this question, so you have to watch the video.
Why is there so much poverty in America?
Because many of us profit from it. We exploit the poor in the labor markets, housing markets, and financial markets. Many of us benefit from that exploitation. We design a welfare state that gives the most to families that need it the least. And we subsidize affluence much more seriously than we alleviate poverty. And we build and continue to maintain segregated communities. We build walls around our affluence, and we hoard opportunities behind those walls. And that creates not only pockets of affluence, but pockets of concentrated poverty. So we have to tear down the walls. We found that landlords who are operating in very poor neighborhoods, these are neighborhoods with poverty rates in excess of 27%, don't just make more than landlords in affluent neighborhoods, but make double. They make double. And the reason is Their housing expenses are much lower, but rents are not that much lower in poor neighborhoods. And I think that that was a real revelation to us, and it opens up both policy possibilities, but also just this idea of, poor folks aren't living in high poverty neighborhoods because that's the only place they can afford. It's not super affordable to live there, actually.
Right.
They're often living in these places because they're the only ones that allow them to live there. Is it better to be a landlord in Soho than the South Bronx? Yes, it is. But in most other cities, think like Buffalo, not Boston, it's actually better to be a landlord profit-wise in poor neighborhoods rather than affluent ones.
I'm seeing, Wesley, your people still got to live even when income from stuff like SSI gets cut. That means private debt expansion. Yeah, I mean, our credit card debt in this country is astronomical at this point. People are paying rent on credit card. Sorry, I'm just sort of reading through some of your comments that you are all sharing. I'm physically disabled, qualify for it, but can't afford to go without income long enough to get approved. So that's exactly what all of these sort of means testing measures do. Oh my goodness. Yes. The ratchet effect is exactly what's happening. Sorry, you guys. I'm kind of catching up because there's so many comments and I don't want you to feel like we're, yeah. What a devastating state of affairs. And, at one point we had, well, first of all, I mean, how have we not had a minimum wage increase since George W. Bush? $7.25?
I mean, we had the opportunity to, as Rose said, do something disastrous and
so irresponsible.
Force $15 into the Build Back Better.
Yep.
Crap.
Yeah. And I mean, I know Bernie's now talking about $17. That's not enough. Like we need to be saying 25, knowing that we're not going to get any of it anyway, but change the whole dialogue. It's 15 is not enough. 17 is not enough. 25. I think just say 30 and then you can negotiate down to 25 because they're going to do it over years anyway. And they're not going to do it at all. I mean, how are they expecting people to be paying rent right now? Like what is happening?
73% of millennials living paycheck to paycheck. 73%. Teachers. Why are they striking? Yeah. Well, look at the cost of living. Just for inflation, they're making an average of $3,600 less than they did 10 years ago.
Yep.
And so it's getting to where people can't buy a house, and grocery store workers, a merger is happening. They're going to lose $300 million from a monopoly being formed right before our eyes.
Yep.
But the housing stuff, 40% of, here's Roe being a good guy again, of course. Sharing
those tweets, those good tweets.
Good tweet.
Don't do anything with the power you have as, an elected member of Congress. But yes, 40% of single family homes are owned by Blackstone and like Vanguard. And they pay in cash. So there's just absolutely no way, even if you have the money, you're never going to be able to compete.
You're not going to be able to compete, and you're not going to be able, even with great credit, you're not going to be able to get the loan because they're getting rid of, they're not, because of inflation now,
right?
Because they're raising the interest rates. Even the interest rate, if you can afford it, you can't get the loan in a lot of cases.
Right.
So the people that can show up with cash, they're banks, and they're buying up the housing market. They're making them all into rentals.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we know that owning your home is the fastest way out of poverty into generational wealth. And so that opportunity is being removed from millennials. And millennials, we just showed you, 73% live paycheck to paycheck. How can they afford a down payment on a house when the housing market is shrinking incredibly fast?
Right. And they are overwhelmed by their own student debt. And they're being told by the boomer generation to, it's because of your fancy phones and your avocado toast. You cannot save your way out of this when you're making so little money. The cost of living is just astronomical. just as because obviously, as you all know, I am married to a writer, and, I was on the picket line a few times last week, and obviously he's there every day. I just thought that this was really fascinating, that this is what the writers are asking for. If they got everything that they were asking for, it would cost the studios who make $30 billion in profit every year, the smallest percentage, 0.091%, is what it would cost Disney. It would be 0.214% from Netflix and 0.108% Warner Brothers. So such a small percentage of what their profits are. And since the writers went on strike 3 weeks ago, Disney has lost almost $16 billion, Universal almost $8 billion, and Paramount $5.5 billion. They could have just ended the strike. And the only reason that they're not is, again, it's disciplining labor and letting the writers know that they're completely expendable. And the only reason I'm highlighting that, because I have a personal connection to it, but that is, as we've talked about for the last 2 years, every single industry, whether it's Amazon workers or truck drivers or railroad workers or grocery workers, like, they are trying to let everyone know that you are completely replaceable.
And you have to think about their long-term profits. They're looking at, hey, if we cave to this fight, even a teeny bit now, it could really hurt us down the road, because we haven't mapped out how to screw the employees for 50 years by denying them this and changing this norm to where writers are no longer this creative force behind our projects. They're just like a little worker bee.
Right.
And
they're taking away all
rights.
Right. They're going to try to keep people doing the grunt work and put the creativity over to the AI. I mean, it's so backwards the way they are trying to do this. But, even like I just saw, almost every supermarket, grocery store, anywhere I go now has the automated or like self-service aisles. And now they have tip jars on those self-service aisles, because we're always having to compensate for the CEOs not paying their employees enough, which is why there's tipping in the first place. Honestly, I mean, in Europe, you don't, and I mean, I was a server for a decade. I relied on tips. I tip well. I believe in tipping, but like, that shouldn't be the way. We should not have to subsidize management's lack of paying a living wage to their employees.
No, and when I get gas, the gas station right next to the freeway, the one I use every single time I get gas, I go in and grab Gatorades a lot of times, because I'm doing stuff outside and in the heat, so it's a regular kind of thing. And the employees there are training people to use the kiosk instead of them, and they're going to put themselves out of work. There's a kiosk now where you go in, you put your gas thing in, you even scan the items that you buy. So gas stations are going to thin down to just one employee in there.
Yep.
And the workers are pushing it, because what are you going to do? Your boss says you got to train people to use this machine, but it's replacing you.
It's replacing you. And, like, I think probably we're all in the same place, that like, I think there'd be something really nice about automating some of the worst kind of labor, but still give people an opportunity to thrive and live a dignified life. Like, they still have to make money somehow, whether it's a UBI or whatever it is. Like, I don't think it's horrible to have some of the most like mining or whatever, right?
Sure.
But it's never that. It's always at the expense of the working class.
Well, and it just elevates, it's always the working class that suffers. But like that gas station attendee now that used to just sit behind the counter and take your cash and have a little exchange. So they're out on the floor telling me to use the machine because they're hustling to stock inventory, and they're taking on other tasks. They're probably now the person responsible for cleaning the toilets, where they had somebody who would come in every once in a while and do it.
Right.
And it's just making things worse, obviously. And it's not that technology is bad. It's just that we need to fight for some of these gains to come to everyone else, not just the rich people who are profiting off of the labor. Because, you're abusing labor more and more with AI, which is why the writer's strike is so important.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. What do you think? Should we? Oh, hey, we need to. Yeah, you got this. Don't you worry. Best side hustles. I was 8 months pregnant and I had 6 side hustle jobs. It was insane. I came home crying every night. It was just I had gained so much weight. I was so uncomfortable, and I was teaching. I was walking dogs. I was babysitting. I mean,
did you read the article? You should have read the article. Why being incredibly stressed and wanting to kill yourself every day is actually good for you.
Good for you. That's when COVID comes in handy, because of the brain fog, and you can forget the misery. I know that lady in that ad, she makes it look so cool. I did not look cool like that when I had my 6 different jobs. I think we need a little bit of a timeline class. What do you think?
Yeah, should we go with your? I didn't watch yours. Let's go with your water vodka one. What do you think?
Yeah, it's a quick one. Let's do a quick one.
All right, here
on our segue. This is a little one.
Well, this is different. I didn't even know we could do this.
Oh yeah, look at us. Look at that.
No, I like this one better.
It's a little easier to see. Otherwise, I have to put on my readers.
Yeah.
All right. We need a shot. It's happening.
Yeah, baby.
Oh, that's a shot. It always keeps rolling. Come on.
Okay. Yeah, override for sure. For sure.
I'll just keep this up so I don't forget.
Did you forget we had that one?
I did forget we had that.
Look at that.
It's one of the few I made that was like 3 seconds long instead of like a minute and a half.
Yeah,
I like to
that.
make long ones.
I like the cow one, but that just gets right to the point.
It was a bit much. Yeah. Cheers.
Cheers.
That's good. After drinking this sweet drink, it's nice to have a shot.
Yeah, that's right. Counteract.
Cleanse the palate. All right, what do we got?
All right, we got police support. So how fascinating that Kenny said that it started his documentary, that his angle in had been talking about policing in this country, which is, as we know, just at horrendous levels. Let's just see how the US is versus other military expenditures. This is what we spend on our police. Of course, we spend almost $800 billion on our military. Then China at $261 billion.
So our police departments are the 3rd biggest military in the world here.
Yeah.
Or police departments.
Our police departments. And I think our country has 4.2% of the world's population, but we have, I thought it was actually more than this, but 20% of the world's prisoners. I mean, that is just such an indictment of our whole system and the land of the free.
Yeah. So here's your lovely city, LA. $3.24 billion proposed budget for next year, which is half of the whole economy for the city.
I mean, healthcare, social services, parks, school, everything. That is where the focus is. It is really, truly disgusting. It's just disgusting.
And I found a million of these, but I just picked one because there's so many to choose from. But this is Portland. So the orange part is the expenditure. It's the budget, police budget. And the line on the screen is gun violence related, how often they settle a case, gun violence case.
Right.
So even though the budget
clearly goes up with the budget, I mean, wait,
astronomically, the actual work being done by them to curb gun violence cases is down because they're not investigating. I mean,
so they're not solving the cases. Even though they're getting all that money, they're not actually solving the cases.
They're not solving the cases. And I just take Sacramento. I mentioned a few months back, a friend of mine, his kid got shot. Didn't make the news. They never talked to lots of critically involved people. Yeah. And that story is repeated across this country. Now,
Yeah.
is it because he's black? Probably. If this
Right.
happened in a wealthy neighborhood, they'd investigate more. But to
Right.
not go after a kid, he's like 21. He was shot like 2 times, but like he had nothing to do with it. He was walking away from a scene and just
Right.
got shot. They don't investigate. They didn't even go. The dad, my friend, had to go door to door to try to get ring footage. You know, you think cops would do
He
that?
became
This
like
is
the
like
detective. Yeah.
the most basic investigative work.
Right.
And they still have no leads whatsoever on this stuff.
And that's for gun violence. I mean, when even just like robberies, usually like when we've had our car broken into or anything like that, they basically are just like, I mean, you can file a report, but nothing's going to happen. Nobody's going to look for anything. It's so they are there to protect capital. That is it. And also, and I don't think we pulled footage of this, but and protect their good buddies, the Proud Boys, the right wing Nazi guys.
But you know, when I was a kid, like we had a ring of car stereo thefts on our street. You know, they hop out of vans and just hit them all at once. Well, the police came and took fingerprints. Like that's just an unheard of thing. You're not going to get a cop to take a fingerprint for anything now.
Yeah.
You might get a notification. Oh, your whole street had your catalytic converters stolen. Okay.
Right.
What are you gonna do about it? You got any
no
leads?
action on it.
No, nothing. If you know anything, let us know.
They will, however, use surveillance on protesters. I mean, that is really pretty much it. Data Miner, an official Twitter partner, helped the U.S. Marshals surveil abortion rights protests following the overturn of Roe v. Wade. We know, obviously, the Cop City protesters, they killed somebody in cold blood. Police killings reached a 10-year high in 2022, just as the federal subsidies to police also reached a 10-year high. And of course, Biden has said many times, we're not going to defund the police. We are going to fund them even more than his predecessor, Donald J. Trump, the fascist.
Yeah, and I liked this tweet. Follow this account if you want to get some good stuff on the LA police. But crime is down significantly with 400 cops than last year. So LA had 400 less cops last year. Why are they adding $100 million if crime went down when you dropped the cops?
Right. I'll be really interested to see how Brandon Johnson fares in Chicago, the new mayor. I don't know that he was explicitly saying the slogan defund the police, but he was talking about that all the policies that would come with defunding the police and investing in care and community. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of pushback he gets in Chicago. I know, unfortunately, Philadelphia just had their election for mayor, and Helen, I think it's Gim or Jim, I'm not sure how to say it. It's spelled Gym, was the good lefty candidate who was talking about investing in the community and, taxing the wealthy. And she came in third, which was really disappointing. But just like across the line in, I don't know if it was in Pittsburgh, I'm going to get my geography wrong, but there was someone who ran along with Summer Lee in 2018, just won as a real progressive district attorney, I think district attorney. So, there are glimmers of hope, but it just feels like the capital class is putting all of their money into sublimating any kind of protest or reform.
Well, and we know exactly the playbook they're going to take, right? They're going to find something in any of these cities with progressives, and they're just going to say, narrative can we shape, like they did in San Francisco with Chesa Boudin. Chesa Boudin was the progressive DA, so they blame all the woes of San Francisco on him, even though crime actually went down.
It went down.
It went down. Crime went down, but they blame him for the homeless problems and everything in San Francisco. And they would have you believe San Francisco is a crime haven of, mass proportions, but it's not. So they're going to follow that same playbook. They're going to misinform the public about whatever they can find.
What's it called? Shoplifting at Walgreens and all that kind of stuff, but never focus on, wage theft. And I mean, this is so disgusting. The Eric Adams hasn't been paying the preschool and daycare providers that make up its once lauded pre-K system. One estimate from January put the amount owed to them at $400 million. They're closing libraries on weekends. And he is another one of these, tough on crime Democrats who just keeps tacking further right. and so then what's the difference? Like, what's the difference between Democrats and Republicans at this point?
And Democrats are openly talking about taking, as part of this new agreement on the economy stuff, to raise the debt ceiling. They're talking about taking unused COVID money and giving it to the police departments.
I mean, Biden's been saying that for a year and a half now, right?
How about use the COVID money? What the fuck?
COVID's over, don't you know?
Oh, I forgot.
Yeah. And then, I mean, I can't imagine anybody who watches us would ever give money to any police officers alliance, but just so you know, they're part of one of these nonprofit networks. They raise millions and millions of dollars, and most of the money actually just is reinvested back into that nonprofit network to pay themselves. So never give money. Not that anybody would, but yeah, big grift. Do not give money to those awful people.
You got Biden selling 56% of the world's sold weapons to 57% of the world's auto
despots in other countries that we were supposed to make pariahs, and we are just funding them as we are, with Saudi Arabia. And I mean, I'm sorry, but if you think that funding ISIS if you don't like how that came back and the Taliban came back to haunt us, funding Nazis in Ukraine and having something like 70% of the weapons be untraceable. We don't even know where they've gotten. Europe. Yeah. And even, the Proud Boys or the people who marched on the Capitol on January 6th or who marched in Charlottesville, those people are all working in concert with right-wing militias in Europe. And some of them were even trained by the Azov battalion. So, it's like manufacturing the problem abroad that then comes back to bite us here. So then you can funnel more money into the FBI and CIA and your police to tamp down on the right-wing extremists that you have been supporting internationally.
Yeah. Well, we don't have Ukraine on the wheel today, but I mean, Ukraine's not going well. And the U.S. government knows it's not going well. Those papers, the emails and documents that got released by that dumb kid bragging about it to his right-wing Nazi buddies, it showed that we know, and they're lying to the public about how well Ukraine is doing there, which we've always known they weren't going to do well there, most likely, because the better they do, the more they get bombed, and there's an endless supply of bombs they can lob in.
And people and soldiers. Like, there's also that, right? So they keep talking about this spring offensive that now even one of the higher up deputies in the Ukraine government was saying, don't expect too much from that spring offensive. We're not really going to be able to handle it. And they do it, I think, to tamp down expectations, but also as a way of saying, so we need more military help. But, at some point, I don't know what is the end game, because there's not going to be regime change in Russia. And even if there is, it will probably be somebody even further to the right than Putin. How many more people have to die, and what is considered a win? I mean, I know Trump had that comment, and that Caitlin Collins woman thought that she was really getting one over on him, and, liberals were all up in arms. Can you imagine? He couldn't say, who do you want to win? Who do you want to win? Yeah. Do you want Ukraine to win? And as much of a moron as he is, and as much as I don't believe any of it, he was like, I just want people to stop dying, which used to be a position of the left. Because at some point it has to stop. So how many more people do we kill on the way to finding peace?
Absolutely. And I think personally, what I think is going to happen is China's going to roll in and negotiate a peace deal. In exchange, they're going to do what we were trying to do, which is basically grab some resources from Ukraine in exchange for brokering this peace. And, so what happens at the end of that? I mean, if it's before the election, Biden's got to say, well, this is really my win anyway. You know, this wouldn't have happened without us. We'll get all this gaslighting that this peace deal was because of Biden, even though it was really from China. But at the end of the day, what is that good for Ukraine? I mean, they need a peace deal. So
right.
Right.
But as Saul says, like when things go well, they say, oh no, we can't negotiate now because things are going so well. And when things aren't going well, they say we have to wait till things are going well so we're in a better position to negotiate. So, you know, it's just
that's been their whole narrative from the start, is that they need to do better in the war so we can negotiate from a position of strength.
Right.
Well, you're not going to ever get to a better position when they can just lob endless bombs at you, missiles at you from afar without any consequence, which is why Zelensky's wants weapons. They want missiles they can lob back at Russia, which if you think that's a good idea, how the fuck are you a leftist?
Yeah. But as Roycroft Jones here says, the win in Ukraine has really nothing to do with anything other than privatizing all the resources and selling it off to BlackRock. And that's all that anybody, you know, when Zelensky, like, what's it called? When you holographed himself into the opening bell of the New York Stock Exchange to say we're open for business. I mean, it's so grotesque. They're not even trying to hide that that's what it all is. Sell them off for parts and make, you know, it's disaster capitalism. Just make all these companies rich off the blood of people. Yep. All right. I think we need another timeline cleanse. What?
You can keep talking. I'm just going to pour my drink over here and keep drinking. What are we on?
This actually, okay, here's another one, but it kind of does feel like me in life most days.
Look at that big mud streak. Oh my God. It's all in his face.
I don't know. That just felt like looking at a mirror for me. Let's spin the
get over there. There we are. There we are.
Yeah.
Oh, look at all those shots. Odds are in our favor.
All those shots.
Yeah, baby.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, that's good. The music worked well.
Music actually matches well too. I'll wait for you.
Cheers. Did you already have your shot when I was looking down?
No, I was waiting.
I need my readers on. Somebody else to do this with readers. Okay. Okay.
One more shot.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah. Oh boy.
I asked nicely.
You did. You know, it's too bad some of these didn't happen at the beginning of the show. Because now, when we're done with the show, you know, I have to go drink my bottle of wine. It's nice when I go along.
Pre-game and post-game.
That's right.
For our Patreon users.
I know. Someday we'll figure out how to grift. To the grift.
I think we get one more shot. I think one more
shot.
Baby.
There we go. Well, congratulations, everybody. We did it. Mission accomplished. May 11th, the public health emergency ended. COVID is no longer with us, except that it continues to kill 1,000 people a week.
It's the right amount of people dying now.
It's just at the good place. Oops, we were both doing the same thing. Go ahead. I'm not. Oh, okay. Now if it looks bad. We're putting our heads in the sand in this new phase, says the Boston Globe opinion columnist. But here we see, I mean, the WHO didn't downgrade COVID-19's classification as a pandemic. United States alone is still tracking about 80,000 new weekly cases and more than 1,000 weekly deaths, numbers that the Boston University research suggests may actually be undercounted. I mean, I don't know how you couldn't come up with the fact, I mean, how anybody could argue that it's being undercounted, because the CDC has shut down its data collection. Nobody's counting it.
What?
There's nothing. There's nothing. And now that Rochelle Walensky's out, that the public health emergency has been declared over, finally, the CDC is saying, hey, we need to clean the air entirely 5 times an hour. We need to filter the air. We need to ventilate. And also consider having your child wear a mask to school. So what kind of public health communication is that? Oh boy, I gotta go here. When you say the emergency's over and now we're going to do the things that some of us have been screaming for 3 years. Who's going to believe that? Nobody's like, if the emergency's over, why are we going to start addressing it now? The messaging is so horrendous.
It's crazy. And it's an indictment of our media that they can get away with this, that they can get away with ending the COVID emergency declaration the same day that they come out with all the prescription for care.
Yeah.
And why do they do it? Because if they had released this information during the COVID emergency declaration, it would have been, the onus would have been on the states to actually, in the federal government, to actually implement these policies. But now it's more dropping it onto businesses and personal responsibility because it's not under the declaration.
Yeah. You got the tools. You got the tools.
They literally timed this stuff the exact same day. And what does the media come out and say? Emergency declaration's over. They don't report on this part of it. So they're not even giving you the other piece of sanity that should go with, I mean, sanity is the wrong word, but like,
yeah. I mean, and testing and treating is no longer free for people. It used to be free for everybody. Now, some people, their insurance kicks in. Some people, it doesn't. Nobody's reporting it. Everybody has the sniffles and says, oh, it's just allergies. And then they say you have the tools. Like, we don't even know, we are not even collecting data.
Well, and they're using it as an excuse to for student loans start repayments for one. So they're like, well, the reason we paused the payments now, they're going to reframe the entire thing.
Exactly.
The student loan payment pause was they're going to reframe that as, oh, that was because of the harms of COVID, not really the student loan stuff. We gave you like 2 years because of COVID. So now that that's over, clearly we need to restart the student loan payments.
Right. And also corporate rental office spaces, right? Because they've taken such a blow. Now everybody has to get back to work in the office.
Which is now all the offices are owned by all these banking groups. There's no individual office because, you know, some small mom and pop's place couldn't afford to own their place.
Right.
COVID. So they basically used COVID to keep enriching extracting wealth from the middle class and the poor, small business owners, everybody they could. No tragedy will go unabused by capitalism.
Yeah, just total disaster capitalism everywhere you look. You know, the anti-vax crowd, the RFK Jr. crowd, they get like half of it right, where they say the lockdowns were used to, or like COVID was taken advantage of to transfer billions of dollars of wealth to, you know, the 1%, which is totally true. That is what happened. But, you know, the other part of it is you could say some of us were saying everyone should get $2,000 a month stipend as long as this goes on so that everybody emerges whole from this, the way they did in other countries where people either got a flat fee or a percentage of their normal salary. But we didn't do that. But that doesn't mean that the safety precaution in locking down for the couple months that we did, that part of it was wrong. And so they're conflating the two different,
of course not,
parts of it.
And I mean, a big piece is you can't estimate, you can only predict, but nobody knows at that time what the outcome of COVID would have been. So the responsible thing is to try to contain something like,
of course,
you know.
Well, so remember now, they're like, oh yeah, sorry.
Well, no, but if you're one of these wacky COVID minimizers, you think COVID's the flu now. You're wrong, but let's just, you know, let's say it is. But nobody knew then. They didn't know in the beginning the outcome. We're still finding out so much about COVID that it lives. People with long COVID is living in their
intestinal
GI tract. I don't know. GI tract.
Your gastrointestinal tract. GI.
But for these people, it's living in them. Just like with shingles, shingles is chicken pox that attaches to your spine. When you're a kid, you have it, and it attached to your spine. When you get it as an adult, it's because stress in your immune system and your nervous system, so that now fights to get out to the edge of your skin.
Right.
That's just one thing. But these people with long COVID, we know what's happening now. We're getting the triggers. We're starting to understand this stuff.
Right.
So
Parkinson's and blood vessels, it's bad.
It's really bad.
Yeah.
Well, but the point is, nobody could have known then the outcome, because here we are 3 years later, not knowing the outcome. The outcome could have been that everyone who got it died in 6 months.
Right. Right. And, they did use at the beginning when things did shut down, they said that kids weren't at risk. And so the minimizing crowd who wanted to get everybody back to work needed to get everybody back to school so parents could go back to work. So they said that children were not really susceptible to this virus. So those high bar graphs are when everybody was sent back to school. Those are pediatric deaths. So that's what happened. At the beginning, there were many fewer because we were protecting everybody. And as soon as we opened things up, there were large numbers of infections. And not only were the kids infected, but then they went back into their communities and infected their parents, infected their caregivers. Studies have now shown that second infections in children are associated with the same risk of long COVID as first infections. The risk is not uncommon, 5 to 16%, and associated with similar risk of hospitalization. So in other words, you do not build up immunity to COVID.
No, absolutely. And that's what we're finding out. Each infection poses risk of long COVID, and cumulative infection, cumulative, Jesus, my Mai Tai is speaking a lot here. Cumulative infections increase your risk for everything bad that happens to anyone with COVID. Heart disease, your brain shrinks, your junk doesn't work if you're a guy, stroke, diabetes.
I just made an appointment for my younger son for his yearly checkup, and I asked if they wear masks in the office, and she kind of laughed. She's like, no, it's not required anymore.
Which is, that's what we want. We want required.
Yeah, because you shouldn't have to think you're going to go get a global pandemic virus when you go see the doctor. Face masks are still a good idea at the doctor's office, a study says. And you know why especially? Because there can still be transmission of a virus from patient to staff or staff to patient. One of the big reasons why they think people should wear masks in healthcare settings is because people who work in these places, for a variety of reasons, are notorious for coming to work while ill. Party on.
It's crazy. We're turning into the worst sci-fi movie. This is the one that just blows me away.
Okay, this is crazy. So they found that people who have COVID, it affects your cognitive processes to induce brain fog and also results in behavioral changes that favor viral survival and propagation. In other words, people who were formerly cautious about getting COVID or spreading COVID, once they have COVID, tend to throw it all to the wind and become less cautious and engage in behavior that helps accentuate the possibility of spreading the virus.
Which I think all of us can relate to, seeing people like that. Like my boss, for example, he's sick. He just got back. He probably has walking pneumonia. He's probably had walking pneumonia for three or 4 months, but it's from COVID. I'm 99% sure, because he's acting like COVID's over. It has been the whole time. But he just went on a cruise and just came back. And so when I'm asking at work, 99% of the reason is the guy I'm with all day is irresponsible. He's not I'm forced into his bubble.
That's terrible.
But that's proof again that masks work, because I have not gotten freaking COVID. And I'm with a guy who probably had it, I would guess twice, and probably has some form of long COVID because he coughs every day.
I do think so. Going back to I guess that's what he was doing on the cruise, spreading his viral gift. There have been a
Oh,
strange
video.
number of posts from epidemiologists, immunologists, I think even pediatricians at their big conferences, indoors, partying it up, maskless. It's so strange. Like, I don't remember ever seeing anybody from the medical profession posting on Twitter their huge gala events, but now they're doing it in the middle of this. Like, I can't.
It really is. If you think of COVID as like an alien species, it came instead of coming from China, it came from Mars or something. And
Right.
If we had writers right now, they could write this.
AI can come up with something really good.
But basically, the host, they're telling the host not to worry anymore, and propagating.
Yep.
It's freaking crazy.
It is pretty crazy. Super spreader events make me want to scream. Yeah, it's crazy. It is so crazy to see these people together. I mean, even like when I go see my kids' baseball games in the stands. Oh, there's a bug on me. If people are too close to me, because everybody's shouting, I wear a mask and then I have to jet out of there and just stand behind home plate, because everyone's forgotten the viral load and the pushing the breath out and the aerosolizing. Like that can still affect you even outdoors.
Well, I mean, the wedding I just went to.
Yeah.
You know, it was a reception, a way post the wedding reception that I went to, indoors. Literally the only person masked out of probably 200 people at this thing.
Wow.
And, you know, I'm getting all these looks, and it turns out the bride is COVID positive.
Crazy.
And hugging everybody at the party. And there's millions of kids, little kids, old folks.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's not great, but do we need a time like that?
Mine is super short, and I don't even know. It's ridiculous. You haven't even watched it, so.
All right. That feels cruel.
Yeah, that's what. Sorry.
All right. Are we gonna spin it?
Yeah. What do we got here?
I don't know.
Yeah, baby.
Asian countries, I'm sure do. There we go. Oh my gosh, I'm kind of seeing double. There was I know, I'm gonna get to it. There was one of the things that we had there was a poll, and it was two different things. If you've masked recently, and white people were like down at 30%, Asian and Black people and brown communities were up in the 50s and 60s percentage if they had masked in the past week, which I thought was really interesting. And there was another one about, white people, if you've masked at least some of the time in the last 7 days, white people, 37%, Black, 77%, and Hispanic, 56%, masked in the last week, which sort of goes along with this, which is, all along they've been saying like, oh, school closures were hurting communities of color and poorer people. And the truth is lower income people are well, that's a horrible graphic because it's so small. And if you've drunk as much as I have, you can't really make it all out. But basically, I'm going to put my readers on at some point. If you are in lower income brackets, your health is much more of a concern because your schools are crappier, your healthcare is crappier or non-existent. Your housing space is often smaller, so you can't isolate if somebody is sick in your home. And it is still a cause of great concern in communities around this country, unless you are a very privileged white person, basically.
And they weren't all white. I'm thinking of Dr. Liana Wen, but all the COVID experts that were minimizers who became the face of Biden's administration.
Yeah.
Turns out all their kids were in private schools with great ventilation, the best health care. They were not they would not have sent their kids to a public school.
No
air filtration systems.
Yeah. And they truly do have the tools. Although, I mean, it's interesting to see like concerts getting shut down, and some of the people, athletes, some of the people who do have the tools, who sort of just, abandon any precautions, are starting to get affected with long COVID. But yeah, I mean, they really thought they could handle it. They can get the Paxlovid when they need it. They have the ventilation. They have access to doctors right away,
Well, I'm sorry. I mean, I follow the NBA pretty closely because, the Warriors and your Lakers. But one thing I noticed is they announce every illness as a non-COVID illness. They make sure and say a non-COVID illness.
I think it's contractual.
They never say a COVID illness.
Ever.
But I call bullshit on the non-COVID illness because what you'll see every time is that their trainers are wearing masks. So when somebody has a problem on their knee or their ankle or whatever, trainer runs over with the mask on. He's not a dummy. He knows how much COVID is going around on that team.
Yeah, exactly. There's a gnat in my I saw when Anthony Davis got hit in the head. His guy, they all, you're right, all those medical trainers, they do. Nobody else does in all of those indoor spaces, but yeah.
Very few. I did see a few people at the Lakers game in the audience. Celebrities wearing masks, which like 2 of them, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right.
What do we land on? We get the wheel. We got one more.
One more. Yeah, let's do one more.
Yeah, baby.
Look at that.
I think I split my last shot. I was trying to get back to something I was supposed to, but look at my face. I'm so red. How am I going to drink all my wine? Problems. Big problems.
Those are white lady problems.
They're so white people problems. Okay.
Oh, I need a Karen banner to put on the bottom.
Yeah. Oh my God. I know. I'm trying to read all of the comments. All right. Are we doing another topic, or are we going out on a timeline cleanse, or what are we doing?
What? We keep avoiding 2024, but I think that's for the best. That's left is 2024, but all that stuff's going to wait. We're so early in this election. I kind of feel like we should just end the timeline.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, the only other timeline cleanse that we have, it's kind of long and it completely doesn't have anything to do with anything, but I just think it's fascinating, but I don't know if it's worth it.
Show it.
All right.
I haven't seen it.
All right. Ready, guys? Here we go.
I have an experiment that we're going to do today. Is I'm going to train your brain to believe that this hand, this arm, is your arm. You see we've got this divider here? So right now you can kind of see your arm. You see the arm there? I'm going to cover over part of your arm. Now I'm doing that because your eyes talk to your brain. And your eyes tell you this is what's happening. So now, can you physically see your arm, your right arm here? No. Great. So I'm going to take these 2 classroom rulers. So we're going to train the sensations. You feel the rulers touching your hands because it's now. Let's start lightly. Feel that on the floor. Whoa, yeah. Oh. Whoa. I'm totally feeling it in this hand. It feels the infamous thumb when you're hammering. Oof. Missed the nail.
Oh, it feels like an electric shock. It's so strange.
Doesn't it?
Yeah. Oh, even when I touch myself.
Yeah. Watch this. One last electric. Watch this. You ready for this one?
Okay.
Guess which finger I'm going to hit.
Okay.
Guess which finger. See if you can tell me which one it is.
Middle.
Ah! Ooh. Now again, I did not actually hurt.
I just think it's interesting to see how people can be manipulated, and we should all be aware all the time. That's what I took from that.
I actually watched that video and thought differently because I have a red hammer just like that. I think it's a Craftsman red hammer that I use at work every day. And I hammered my thumb last week. So
I'm sorry. So it was not a timeline cleanse. It was
I'm
a
the idiot.
traumatic,
Yeah,
a
that was triggering.
traumatic revisiting of,
Triggering.
yeah. All right. What do you think? Everybody, when you get the chance, please try to see that documentary, Healing Us. It's so beautiful and heartbreaking. And I don't think I'm a one issue voter. I'm like 5 of them have to be there, but that's definitely one of my number one. Like, I will not ever vote for anyone who is not for Medicare for All.
I agree. And I mean, I know there are some one issue voters where it's Stop the Wars, for example, or things like that.
That's another one. Yeah.
For me, I just look around at everyone in my life and think everyone would benefit from better healthcare.
Yeah.
People I know that think they're okay, they're doing all right, they got a nice house, it's mostly paid off. They're one diagnosis away from losing that nice house. And I know more than those people, I know people that can't afford a house. They're screwed if they lose, they get sick. So, you know, it's the one equalizer that can bring everybody a little justice, a little dignity, a little like at least our lives are worth the same amount.
That's
even
right.
If we don't live the same quality of life, at least our lives actually have the same value.
That's right.
So
that's right. We value all of you guys. Thank you for hanging out with us this week. Once again, keep punching up. We will see you next week. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.